Hello and welcome to the Work for Change podcast. My name is Jean, but it's spelled like Jean. It's your boy, Jean.
My name is John with the silent H. Welcome to episode 43 of the Work for Change podcast. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend with us. We really appreciate it.
Can I talk about something I did right before the podcast? Literally right before. We were talking about what episode number is this? And so I was looking at our podcast to make sure what our last episode was. And someone in the comments was like, John, thank you for being just a voice of whatever, basically complimenting you. And they're like, your brother lacks conviction. He's afraid of stepping on people's toes.
That's funny that they said that to you because that's a comment I get on my YouTube channel all the time.
That you're afraid of stepping on people's toes?
Because I am afraid of stepping, without a doubt.
I'm not afraid of stepping on people's toes. I just, there's a message I want to get out there, and there's no point, why it's like taking a shotgun and just shooting and, getting all the casualties when, a scalpel is going to do the job. I don't want to just shoot everyone for the sake of shooting every single person. If I'm trying to make a point, I don't want it to get lost in everyone else being offended. You know what I mean? It's not afraid of, but I also do know that I do at times want to say something and I hold back. So
that's me every video that I make.
Every
video that I make. I'm like, I could say this in a way that would offend more people, but it would get my point across in a really punchy way. Man,
it's like a shotgun.
But then it's what's the point? Okay, so this episode is not about us. It's actually we are here with my friend Daniel.
Hello.
This is someone that I've wanted to have on the podcast for a while.
I'm glad it's your friend.
Yeah, him and John actually have a lot of beef, which we'll get into. But we've one of the things I've wanted to do on the podcast is have people from the gym. So Daniel goes to our gym, CrossFit Darkside. I've wanted to have people because we'll have people that have big followings or whatever, right? They have everyone knows their story, or a lot of people know their story, right? So I've always wanted to feature people that might not have such a big following, but their story is really cool, you know, or people that are from the gym that we can kind of tell their story. So this is Daniel, and Daniel has a really awesome story, and I thought that it would be cool to just kind of talk and hang out. So sweet. Daniel, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So Daniel, the way that we met, and correct me if I'm wrong, so the first time I ever met Daniel was at the other gym that I used to go to.
Yes.
And we met because he was working out, I was working out, and I think you came up to me, right?
Yeah. I'm a subscriber, so I saw you walk in, and I was like, okay, I got to go say hi to him. Because if I don't, the way that I am, I'll just sit there and lurk until I die. If I don't just immediately go say hi. So I was like, hey, John, I'm a fan of your videos. You've helped me a lot. Thank you for putting all those videos out there, and you've helped me a lot. And I just said, you've got me into working out. You helped me understand, food and losing weight, and I appreciate it. And then you were just like, oh, hey, nice to meet you, man.
And so at that time, how much weight had you lost? When we first met?
I
know it's kind of hard to remember back.
I think I lost about 40 pounds.
40 pounds. Okay, so to set this up, the reason I'm asking that is how much weight are you down now?
I'm down about 145 pounds.
Holy crap, that's crazy. Because I just the thing that's crazy to me is it's so cool being able to see changes and see it in person, right? Because I get people that tag me all the time on Instagram and stuff, which is awesome. And it's surreal to me that I'm not going to say I take credit, but it's surreal to me that there's people that have been following me that have used me as some sort of inspiration or gotten some sort of knowledge from me, right? Yeah. And I hear it all the time on Instagram, but to see it in person and to meet you, and then eventually you start coming to CrossFit Darkside and seeing how much weight you ended up losing, and being there and seeing you every week, seeing you just slowly lose the weight. It's been really cool.
Yeah, because you can see the before and afters, which are really cool, but you don't get all the little cool milestones in between in someone's story. So that's what's really cool about knowing someone who's losing weight, because you see them regularly and you can check in with them, and you're like, oh, I've learned about this now, or I've learned about that now. And the before and after photos, which are really cool, it just doesn't communicate all that. Yeah. So that's why whenever I come across those, and usually if there's a long caption, I'll read it, because I understand that process just comes with so much. And I can relate to it. So.
Yeah. Before and afters are interesting there. like
They're toxic, apparently.
Let's not get into that,
No.
man. Oh, man. It's funny. Now, because I've talked about it so much, every time I post it before and after, there's comments like, this is toxic. Like, they're joking. But it's like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, what did I start? But yeah, that's so true. Like, before and afters are awesome and they can be really inspiring. But I always, like, when I first started my Instagram, I always was writing these really long captions, which is probably not good because I'm terrible at writing things. So probably tons of spelling mistakes. But I would always, because in my head I was like, well, Instagram, I always thought of it as the image is one thing, but then half of that post is the caption. Like that was kind of always what has been in my head. And so I would always try and write, like I didn't just want to be like, look, before and after, you can do it too. Thumbs up, you know? Because like I actually wanted to help people. So I agree that with before and afters, it's like reading the captions can be really important and almost more important than maybe even the picture itself, you know?
Yeah. And even like on the, the Instagram Explore page, because I follow a lot of weight loss accounts and stuff. So those, I'll see a before and after picture pop up and I'll click on it and I'll read the caption and also like just go into their profile because you can see their process too. Because if it's, public profile, you can see where they started. You can see all the videos they post and it's really cool. I live for that. It's cool seeing everyone's story.
Having lost a lot of weight, are you able to tell when a before and after is BS?
Ooh. Kinda. I think it also depends on who's posting it. I think. Like if it's someone who has a program, I'm instantly like a skeptic. I'll just kind of be like, okay. And I can tell when someone's like purposely like bloating their stomach out.
That's what I was going to say.
That's very obvious.
So for some reason, all my before and after pictures, like all like the tiles in the background are really warped. I don't know. I think it's just like a weird Instagram thing. Like
it's the filters you're putting on them.
Yeah, it must be or something. But I don't know. I don't know how to explain it.
I've noticed like if it's someone that's like super muscular in the after and their before is like them looking kind of fat, it's like almost always they just like probably ate a bunch of sodium and then they drank a bunch of water and they're just bloating their and they're like their lower back's always like arched and they're pushing their stomach out and I'm like,
and their faces like look so uncomfortable. I'm like, they look sad.
I've definitely, that's what Jean's before and afters look like.
That's what my afters look like. I don't understand,
His afters look the same as his. What was that?
It's like I somehow became more sad. I don't know what happened.
There's this meme. It's like it comes around every new year where it's like every year my New Year's resolution is to lose weight, and I always take a before picture. It's like, but I never lose any weight, so I just have a steady yearly progress of me gaining more weight,
and looking more sad. Oh my god, I can relate to that.
I know.
Or like the meme where it's like looking 5 years ago, I wish I was as fat as I thought I was, or whatever. Those ones.
Oh yeah, it was like I wish I could go back to when I was like, man, I'm fat.
Yeah. So what was the impetus to wanting to lose weight?
Oh man, it started a long time ago. It started like over 10 years ago.
Okay. Was it a process of multiple try this, fail, or did you like lose it, get it back, lose it? Like
definitely like just gaining it back. It was like my weight would go down, but then I'd regain, and I would regain higher than where I started.
What were you doing when you were like losing and gaining?
When I first started, I was like 13 or something. When I was like, I'm overweight. I should do something, and it wasn't from anyone being like, hey, you're fat, which is nice. I wasn't from this bad place. I was just like, I'm fat. I'm kind of fat. I should. And so I just started running. Like we lived on this really long stretch of street, and I was like, I'm just gonna go run down and back a few times, and like you talked about the common sense diet. I was like, and just kind of not be dumb when it comes to what I eat, and it worked. I lost like 20 pounds or something. I don't remember
13 years old.
Yeah, 13, 14 in there, and then I got a diet book. Looking back now, it was insane. It was like 1,100 calories a day or something like that when I was following the meal plan. And I was like, man, no wonder I was hungry. Yeah. Oh, my God. So, and I didn't learn anything from it, which also sucks. It's like not only that started a really bad relationship with food, but I didn't even learn anything from it. So then I would regain, and it was just a bunch of, attempts where you kind of go down and regain and get higher to where I was when I started before, and repeat until I just slowly climbed up. And
what was your heaviest weight?
My heaviest was like 320.
320?
320. I think that was the heaviest I have like on record somewhere. And like I would keep track of my notes sometimes because I was like, I knew I'll eventually lose the weight and I'll have this on record. So the heaviest I had was like 320.
Why is this one stuck?
It's a good question. CrossFit definitely helped.
Okay.
Because it switched up my training a lot. I treated them as so separate before. I was like, oh, I run, and eventually I started lifting weights. It's like, oh, I lift weights, and then I'm also trying to eat well.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I started at CrossFit, I was like, this is a lot more athletic than anything I've ever done. I mean, I wouldn't even say I was running. I would jog when I first started. So it was just like brisk jogging, and then I would do basic bodybuilding stuff. And so I was like, this is a lot more athletic than I'm used to at all.
Mm-hmm.
So if I ate like an idiot the night before and I work out first thing in the morning, like if you eat really bad the next morning, you do not feel good. You feel like dehydrated. And so I'd come into the gym.
You think I'd learned that lesson.
Jean eats a pizza every night.
Dude. No, dude, I had pizza last night, man.
Yeah,
regrets.
I've gotten to the point now where it's like I just like save my not bad meals, but I save my like
the ones that are gonna make you feel like garbage.
Poo-poo.
Right?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with saying that.
Yeah. I'm the need to be the one with conviction, okay?
Convict yourself, bro.
All right. The bad meals. The unhealthy meals. No. The burritos. Like, let's be honest. Yeah. I'll save those for Wednesday night because I take Thursdays off. Or Saturday night because I have Sunday off. Mm-hmm. Those are like I reserve those meals where I'm like, I don't need to worry about feeling good the next day.
There you go.
Anyway.
It's all about finding those days, man.
Yeah.
You're just like, where can I fit in burritos into this?
Those days.
I live.
Well, so that's kind of similar to how I was. Like because I lost the weight years before I found CrossFit. But for me, CrossFit was, and this podcast is not us trying to make people do CrossFit, but we all have that in common, right? For me, it was just, and if you want to, you can even. If you want to take CrossFit out and put functional training, right? Like whatever. It's all the same thing, really. That helped me. It made me realize how much I was capable of, too. Like, that was a big thing for me. Like, I've told this story a ton of times, but, like, the first CrossFit workout we did had box jumps in it, and I was terrified to jump on the 20-inch box.
I still am, yeah.
Yeah,
I feel that.
But then I did it, and I was like, okay, I can do this. And, like, there's those things for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're like, for me, it was morbidly obese most of my life. Wasn't athletic, right? And then bodybuilding it's not very athletic. It's just based on, trying to get your muscles bigger, which is fine. But then when I got into CrossFit, it turned it more into a lifestyle for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things about this style of training and CrossFit in general is the community that it has is like you end up hanging out with the people at the gym.
Yeah.
Because for me, when I was doing bodybuilding, I went by myself, right? And or I had my friend Brian that we would go, but it's not like we were hanging out with a big group of people.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like if I'm doing bodybuilding, I don't want to do that, because I want to get in and out. Like I'm not trying to be there with a bunch of people. With CrossFit, you have that camaraderie, you have that group of people that are going to be working out with you, suffering with you, right?
Yep.
And
it's going to be an hour, which is nice. So
exactly.
even if you are talking with people in between the stuff, it's like, well, we're going to be out in an hour, yeah.
But okay, so going back a little bit, so with the first time we met was when you were doing like your bodybuilding stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So what was your training looking like then?
Then I was following a program that I found online. It was, I think as people call it like power building, where it's like for the compound lifts, you're doing like strength training, where it's like 5 to 6 reps at most, and then you do bodybuilding stuff for your accessory work. And I was like, I feel strong when I lift heavy things. So I was like, I'm going to go with this one. So I was doing, some squatting, deadlift, some bench, press, the big lifts. Mm-hmm. And then,
overhead
curls.
press and stuff like that.
Overhead press, yeah. Then doing curls, flies, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I was just I had no goal, though. I was just like, I'm just going to keep trying to up the weight each session if I can. So
were you following a program, or was it like just a mentality? Like power building, is it like a program that you follow, or is it like I'm going to do a big lift and some accessory? It started from a program I found, this guy online called Greg O'Gallagher. I don't know if you've heard of him. Mm-hmm. It was like one of his articles online, because I was like, I'm not going to pay for a program. I'm going to try and find it for free first. Same.
So I found it for free, and I started following that, but then I started to get the general idea. I was like, lift heavy when you're fresh, and then do the accessory sets you want. Not too much. Mm-hmm. And so I just started doing that. And at first I was like, well, this is good. I'm kind of customizing my own program. But then that was when I kind of lost any direction. I just kind of went in and was just like, I'm just going to work around for an hour and go home. Mm-hmm. So And I mean, it was fun. I still like doing the heavy lifts. I like when we go for 1 rep maxes here at the gym and stuff, because that's still like my bread and butter. It's like I'm a strong boy, you know. But beyond that, and like I said, my eating was not in check, so I would just also feel really crappy while I was doing it. So I wasn't enjoying the gym as much as I am now, which is a big deal. I mean, and again, not that you have to do CrossFit, but the difference between working out or doing some sort of physical activity out of some sort of obligation you feel versus because you enjoy it, world of difference. Huge world of difference. And that's why I think this was it for me when you asked, you know, like what made this one click. It's because I truly started to enjoy the process and see the rewards of my enjoyment and stuff like that. And it's a big difference. So
going back to box jumps,
yes.
So you
the
said,
enemy.
Yeah. But okay, so Daniel is the type of guy who shows up to class 30 minutes early and stretches,
45 minutes
and mobilizes. But then you do the workout, and then you do some post-workout stretching and mobilizing and, you know, cool down. Part of that is you decided you wanted to overcome the box jump.
Yes.
And so I think almost every time you're here, you pull out a box and you just do a couple box jumps just to kind of get over the fear of it. Is that what it is?
I mean, I know doing explosive stuff also helps because my hips are super tight. I work a desk job, so I'm sitting all day. So my hips are just a mess. So that's what most of my stretching is when I come in here. And I was like, okay, I'm scared of the box. So I'm just going to do 15 box jumps every morning. And so I just do like 3 sets of 5 in between my other stretch movements, kind of like, you know, supersetting or whatever you want to call it. And I was like, I got to get used to it. I'm going to stay scared of it if I avoid it at all costs.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to do 15 every day that I'm in the gym. Still scared of the box, but at least a little less scared now, basically. And that's progress.
Before we were recording, we were talking a little bit about the Enneagram. And you personally haven't taken the Enneagram test. But
I have not.
But you said you believe you're a 6 based on what your friends said.
It sounds like I'm a 6. My friends, they're all like, I think you're a 6.
So
I believe them.
With a 6, a core motivator is fear, and the Enneagram. It's not like It's not a personality test. Like it's a motivation. Like what's your motivations? Why do you do the things that you do? Why are you the way you are?
Why are you the way that you are?
So the 6 is a unique number because it has 2 sides of it. One is fear, and so when they're afraid of something, they avoid it at all costs. My brother. Like it's kind of like I heard that once upon a time someone got sick from doing this one thing, so I'll be sure to never do that ever again.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or even if I do, like, be like, no, that's nonsense. The back of my brain's still like, is it though?
Yeah. But then the other side of the 6 is there's a fear, and so they run into the fear. Because they're like, I don't want to be owned by that. Like, I don't want that to rule me.
I do that too.
And so it's like, when I hear that box jump, like that for me is like, oh, okay. Like you're like, I'm afraid of this, so I'm going to master it so I don't have to be afraid of it.
Yep.
And afraid of it is probably like a hard term. But like, you don't want to bust your shin on the box, and you don't want to, and so it's like.
That hurts.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I remember the first time I fell.
Oh, you've fallen?
I've fallen twice.
Yeah.
First time, it wasn't that bad. I kind of just like tumbled gracefully over the box, just kind of landed on my hands and knees, and I was like, oh wow, that was crazy. And then I think I can't remember if it was the same workout, and the front of my foot just hit the box, and my shin just landed right on the corner.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's it. I'm paying for this? What is going on? Well, I'm paying for this to happen to me?
I literally always use a softbox now if I can. It's just like not worth it.
So that's like literally the opposite side. It's like, oh, okay, well, softbox forever now.
Yeah, well, so I've fallen twice too. So the first time it was actually during 17.1. It was my
I remember
first
that.
ever
I saw the video of that on your channel.
Ever open workout, and the workout was like it was dumbbell snatches and burpee box jump overs. And I was like towards the end of the workout, and I did one, and my foot clipped the box, and then luckily my shin didn't hit, but like my side hit the side of the box, and I rolled over.
You tumbled
I was
over.
like totally fine, and then I just went back to it.
But it's just a rush when that happens for the first time.
It was like my heart started my heart was already. That workout is still one that I don't think I'll ever do again.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it would be as much of an issue because I've gotten a lot better at the dumbbell snatches. Before I was like putting it on the ground, picking it up off the ground. But now I I'm pretty good at switching in the air.
Switching in the air.
So like that like leaning over, my lower back was like fried
yeah.
afterwards.
But a lot of people don't know this, but John David's not famous because of the Ellen video, but because his box jump fail ended up on some like compilation.
Did it?
Video.
I ended up on like gym fails or something like that. I was like stoked. I was like, yes.
I was going to say, how's that feel? You've made it.
It was amazing. I'm really proud of myself. Maybe one day I'll end up on Infinite Edge Intensity or whatever, the guy that makes fun of CrossFit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, where he does like the recap of the
Zero.
games
I
every
need
year.
to watch that one.
0. Also, and then the second time was a more normal one. My shin like hit the box, but for some reason like my skin didn't break, so I wasn't like bleeding out.
Yeah.
But like the ins like I still have a scar from it. The inside of my leg, like there was blood on the inside. It was just it didn't like cut out.
It didn't cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very weird.
I've hit my shin multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, same
Like
thing for me.
huge,
So guys, do CrossFit. It's very safe.
huge,
Very safe. It's super
huge
fun.
bumps on my shins where it's like gross. One time I was I dropped into a gym and they had box jumps and I tripped and I was wearing white Metcons and there was like an off-white and the brand Off-White. It was Off-White. It was crazy. Super expensive Metcons. But I hit the box and I kept going and my leg was just bleeding and it bled all over my white Metcons.
Nice. So they looked cool.
And it was just, people were just like, who is this guy? And I'm like dropping into this gym and it was like,
what gym was it at?
CrossFit Windansea over by the beach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
So you dropped into a box and you dropped into a box.
Yeah. I dropped into a box and I asserted my dominance.
You're just like, they can't see me cry.
Dogs mark their spots with pee. Jean does it with blood.
Yeah.
Just bleeds all over.
It wasn't even a workout. I just like walked up, took the box out, and just jammed my shin against the side of the box.
And then he did sprints around the gym, tried as much as he could to get the blood everywhere.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was good.
This is a great conversation.
I wasn't invited back.
And they're like, print off your photo.
Actually, yeah, my photo's there. It just says, "Do not allow back."
Do not allow lax conviction.
So, okay, let's get back to the weight loss stuff. So, you were doing those workouts, the power building stuff. You had lost like 50, 60 pounds, you said, kind of?
Around 40 or 50.
Around 40 or 50.
Somewhere in there.
Okay, sorry, I'm terrible at listening, I guess. But then, so it seemed like and I could be wrong, but because I saw you for months and months, right? It didn't seem like much had changed. Like,
no.
Had you had to hit a plateau?
It was like a plateau and just kind of going up and down.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just like I stayed at a weight. I would go down and regain.
So what was going on there?
It was all of my eating.
Eating
has been like the base problem in all of this. Like, if I find it's hard, man. Food just tastes so good. Why does food taste so good?
I know, seriously. Tell me about it. Well, it's because it's engineered. We could go into that.
We can go into that.
Because it's made to taste that good.
Yeah, it's like,
and make you overweight. But
get Zach from Flexible Dieting Lifestyle here, stat. I enjoy training, so I can get myself to the gym. That was the thing. I'm at the point now where I'm not like, oh, I gotta go train. I enjoy it, and I enjoyed it back then, but it was just the eating. I was like, I'm fine. Mm-hmm. So I would just go up and down and not realizing how much I was eating. So then I kind of got into tracking food for a bit, which how long did you track food? Did you track it for a while?
I tracked it for a few years.
Yeah. Man, I couldn't do it for a few years.
Yeah.
I did it for a couple months and I became so obsessive where I was like, this is not helping as much as I hoped.
That's the thing, man. Like, it's any advice that someone gives to someone, like, you have to be careful because everyone's going to take it differently, right? Like, there's a huge movement right now on Instagram where there's a bunch of like RDs that are part of the Health at Every Size movement, and they're all about intuitive eating, right? And while I think without a doubt intuitive eating, like that's what I do basically is intuitive eating. Like there's ways that you can get to that point, but it's very hard to get there. And so I think that if you're someone that's a food addict that is addicted to food, intuitive eating is going to be very hard at the start. Right? And so, and this is the same thing with people that are always like, you should track every macro and track your macros. My thing is like, track your calories at first.
Yeah.
Because, and I'm not saying you need to track for forever, but then you can get an idea of how many calories you're actually putting into your body. Because a lot of people, you don't realize how many calories are in this oil that you've been putting in your food, or this dressing you've been using, or the liquid calories you're drinking. Jean has a coffee, and some people, like, they might not even think about that. They might not even think that could be 200 calories or something.
Exactly. My thing was like rice. I never looked at a nutrition label on rice in my life. And when I did, I was like, oh, man.
You realize you're eating 400 grams of it or something. You know? So that's why I think tracking can be useful, but at the same time, it's a double-edged sword, and everyone's going to react to it differently.
Yeah.
And so, like, you can become obsessive, and that's kind of how it was. Like, you had, like, for when I did the physique show, you have to be obsessive because that's what it takes, right?
Yeah.
And so I realized that while I was doing the show and prepping, and I was like, I'm done. Like, when I'm done with the show, because I had to continue tracking, right, to get as lean as I wanted, as I needed to be. Once I was done, I was like, I'm done tracking, which was terrifying because I didn't know, I didn't know how much I had learned from tracking to be able to put that into. I didn't think of it as intuitive eating, but just not tracking and trying to be smarter with my meals, right?
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, it's tough, man. But I think that I always say everyone should learn how to track.
Oh, for sure.
Because
for sure.
then it's just a skill that you have.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the same thing. When I first stopped tracking, I was so scared. I was like, what am I going to do? I don't know. I don't even know what I've learned. Like what you said, I don't even know what I know. So, I started and stopped. So first I did it for like 3-4 months, and I would just track my lunch. So I do intermittent fasting. Hey, it finally came up. If you do fasting, if someone does it, they will mention it.
Fasting and CrossFit. There
Fasting
we go,
and CrossFit. I've talked about both.
There you go.
Podcast over. So I would skip breakfast. So I would track my lunch that I would bring to work. And then I wouldn't track dinner. I would just be like, okay, so I know what I have to work with for dinner, roughly. You know
how many? I have 600 calories left in my calorie bank, kind of thing, or whatever it might be. Yeah.
I would track my lunch, and I wasn't even tracking all my macros. It was just calories and protein. So I was like, okay, I have this many calories left, and I need a high, medium, or low protein dinner tonight, something like that. And then I got so obsessive, weighing out everything, and it was taking up like a big chunk of my morning before I go to work. And I was like, I don't think this is helping as much as it's making me get really crazy about this.
That, and it's like, how sustainable is that?
Exactly.
That's what I always think is like, do you see yourself doing this in X amount of years?
Yeah.
If the answer is no, then it's like, you might be able to continue doing it for a little bit, like continue tracking, but then eventually you're going to learn how to do stuff without having to sit there for 30 minutes, 45 minutes in the morning, every morning.
Yeah. And so then I stopped when I realized I was like, this is getting really obsessive. And then once I got near in like the last 15, 20 pounds to my goal weight, I know those sometimes are like the hardest ones to lose because it's not like small changes make a big difference when you first start. It's really in the nitty and gritty of losing weight is the very last like 15, 20 pounds. Yep. So I was like, I should start tracking again just to see what I'm eating. Because I had started to notice plateaus more often. I was like, maybe I'm eating more than I think I am. So I started tracking and that was this year in January. And I tracked till like May or June. And again, it helped at first, and then I got like super obsessive about it. And I was like, okay, I should probably stop.
Did you notice anything when you were doing that? Did you realize, I'm eating more than I thought? Or
I noticed it was just my dinners. Because before I wouldn't track my dinners. I would just be like, okay, I have this much to work with. And I thought I could estimate. And it turns out I was underestimating.
Really?
Which is the case with a lot of people. They say people consume more than they would guess if they were asked to. So I just realized I was consuming a couple hundred calories more at dinner than I thought I was, and that makes all the difference. When you're leaner, when you're down near your goal weight. So I just started tracking that, and like you said, it's a good skill to have. Like, I'm not against tracking. I'd say if anyone wants to track, do it for at least like 3 months, because then that gives you enough time to track the meals you eat most often.
Exactly.
I think that's enough time for you to cover even your less common habits of eating. And then you kind of know. You see that number. Make sure you're also like looking at the numbers and remembering it. Because at first I was just using like a crutch. I'd just be like, oh, weigh, boom, enter it in, not look at it again. I wasn't learning anything. So it's like, pay attention, take mental pictures, know what's in your food, know how many calories you're eating. And then that'll be a skill you'll have later when you stop tracking. So, because it turns, at least for me, it turned into like a numbers game. And it was like both opposite ends of the spectrum. It was either like I'd fill out my calories for the day, and my family would be like, oh, even something small. They're like, oh, we found this new guacamole mix. Do you want to try some chips and guacamole, see if it tastes good? And be like, no, thank you. I've already logged my calories for today.
That's how I had to be for the show. And it sucks, man. You're just like, I can't enjoy anything.
Yeah. And I was like, in the back of my head, whenever I'd say that, I'd be like, is this how life's going to be?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want life to be like this. Or it'd be the complete opposite, where my family would be like, did you just eat an entire pint of Halo Top and an entire sleeve of rice cakes? I'd be like, yeah, it fit into my calories for today. And it's like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's either you can become super restrictive and not like live at all because you're like, no, my numbers said this. Or it can be like, how can I game these numbers to just pig out and know that I fit it into my calories for today? It's like, neither of those are sustainable at all.
Yeah.
And you don't want to like regularly do that in your life. Sit there and just be like, oh, well, it fits in today so I can eat all this stuff. You know, it's like, you have to become more intuitive. But like you said at the start, your instincts might be like, eat all the cake.
Your instincts are going to be that, right?
Yep.
If you're like 200 pounds overweight, right? That your instincts, like my friend Alan, Every Damn Day Fitness, is like you intuitively ate yourself to a morbid obesity. You know what I mean? So it's like if that's what you're gonna do at the start, it's just not realistic. There's no reason to not eventually get there.
But at the start, it's dangerous.
Exactly.
Or risky, not dangerous.
Now, with this conversation, I'm actually blown away by the amount of like knowledge that you have with all of this stuff. Like everything you're saying, I pretty much agree with. Is there a reason that you've decided to try and learn all this stuff for yourself? Because when I talk to a lot of people that have lost a lot of weight, a lot of times they don't really understand the reasons that they're losing weight, or they don't understand how to make it sustainable.
Yeah.
And like I've talked to people where I hate to say this, but it's true. Like I've talked to them and I've realized they're very much so just in a severe deficit, and like that's all they know. And that they have no plan of when they're done with the deficit. They have no plan of how to make this a lifestyle for them to sustain for a long time.
Yeah.
So like what has happened in your life? Like why have you decided to want to learn so much, I guess?
It's funny that you mentioned that because it's so true. It's like most people, especially who were overweight before, it's like they either know how to gain weight or lose weight. They rarely know how to maintain weight. And that's more of the lifelong thing. You're going to get to a weight that you want to stay at. And if you don't know how to maintain, and that's where more, I think, of the knowledge and education comes in. Because you can look up, you know how to eat less, and then you know how to pig out. But if you know, like, how do you get more in tune with your body's hunger signals and stuff like that, that's the lifelong battle, is maintaining a place that you like. So it's come from a point where I mentioned like that diet book I got years back, and when I tracked food recently, it came from me looking back at these things I've done and realizing I didn't absorb much knowledge from them. I was like, I just kind of went through the motions because this is what you do to lose weight or something like that. And so I was like, this is going to be a lifelong thing because I ate myself, like you said, I ate myself to be that big, so I know that old me or whatever is still there lurking somewhere. Like I joke, I still have the appetite of a 320-pound man. I could eat a lot of food. So I said one way, arguably the most effective way to combat this is just knowledge. Knowledge, and so I was like, I got to learn. I got to read. I got to start reading books. I got to start reading, articles, reading about people's experiences and stuff like that, what worked for them, try it on myself. Nothing too crazy, but just like, that's how I came across fasting. Is I was never hungry in the morning, and I was like, they say breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And so
gosh, man.
And I was like, no, total calories are the most important thing of the day, eating.
Well, you jumpstart your metabolism, makes it work faster. So you got to do it.
Yeah, and was it meal 1 of 8 or whatever?
Yeah.
You have to eat 8 small meals a day every.
So I'm curious with the intermittent fasting, like what's kind of the protocol that you've been doing, and like what's the reason for it?
Yeah, it started when I was like, I'm not hungry in the morning. I'm not hungry for breakfast. At first I was like, why eat if I'm not hungry? But then I felt like they say this is very important to eat breakfast, and I'm skipping breakfast, but I don't feel bad doing it. So I started researching that, and I came across, it was the same guy whose program I was following. He also recommends fasting.
Yeah.
That's his big thing. I think in a way that's what he's really known for, is he's was preaching fasting for a long time before it became, it's definitely more popular now than it was like 5+ years ago. So I was like, oh man, other people do this, and apparently there's science behind it. And so I was researching it, less from the science side, just more like people are doing this and they feel good, so I'm going to try it. So I would just skip breakfast. And then I got into the eating windows and stuff like that, where it was like eating for 8 hours, and I'd eat from like 1 to 9 or something, and it felt good, and that got me a lot of good results too. Combining that with like tracking my lunch, because if my eating window is coming to an end, I'd usually get full before I would like hit my daily calories or something. So I think that's what helped me lose a lot of the weight too. But now I'm not too strict about eating windows. I don't eat right when you wake up like a lot of people do. They'll wake up and they'll just like throw a breakfast together or something like that. I'll be like, wait a couple hours, I'll have coffee, which some people say that doesn't break your fast. Some people say it does. I say it doesn't,
Yeah.
So I'll just have black coffee, and I'll have a snack or something 2 to 3 hours after I wake up, and then I'll have lunch an hour or two after that, and then dinner at dinner time. But now I came across a book called Eat, Stop, Eat by Brad Pilon, and his schedule is a 24-hour fast once a week. And I was like, that's interesting. And so I got that book, read through it in like a day, because I was like, this is so weird that people are doing this.
When I hear people say that, I'm just like, how on earth?
It was a picture book.
Oh, okay.
It was a picture book, yeah. He was like, yeah.
The mouse eats here. Okay. The alligator.
It was like before picture, graphs, after picture. And I was like, okay, sweet. And so he was like, just stop eating at lunch, and then don't eat till lunch the next day. And he's like, don't overeat to prepare the fast, Don't overeat to make up for it afterward. He goes, eat as you normally would, just take a 24-hour break once a week. And he presented the science behind it, which I'm less of a whiz there, but there's science backing it that it forces your metabolism to burn through your fat stores and stuff like that, and then it lowers the insulin in your bloodstream, and then human growth hormone can take over and stuff like that, because insulin's the dominant the dominant hormone, and once it's down, then other things can take over, all that stuff. And so I tried it once. I went for 24 hours, and it was hard. The first one, I was like, man, I'm hungry. But then it helped me realize, like, this is what hungry really feels like.
Yeah.
I'm not hungry when it's, like, 30 minutes after lunch. And I'm like, man, I'm hungry again, So I do that now. Actually, I haven't been doing that recently because I had surgery. I don't want to fast while I'm recovering from surgery.
Yeah.
So now my regimen is just, like, don't eat for the first couple hours of the day, and then I do a 24-hour fast, usually on Wednesdays, because Thursday's on my rest day. So I just go from Wednesday lunch to Thursday lunch, and it's great.
Yeah.
It's like I said, eat as you normally would. The important part is some people who I've talked to, they're like, oh, I'll try that, and they'll eat like a huge lunch to like prepare for it, stock up for the fast, and then after,
well, that's the point. Then.
Yeah, and then afterward, they're like, man, I'm hungry, but I fasted for 24 hours, and so they'll eat a bunch after, and I was like, well, no, this is to help put you in a weekly deficit. Which is another thing that book helped me out. I think nutrition-wise, if people stop looking at it day to day, which obviously day to day is where the little battles are and stuff and making smart choices. But if you look at your nutrition from like a weekly standpoint, that can really help realize what's sustainable and what helps a lot too.
Yeah. A couple things. One, intermittent fasting is how we found out Sam was diabetic because we tried it. We tried intermittent fasting. I liked it for a little bit. It was nice being hungry in the morning. Like, I eat, not right away, but like I wake up in the morning, read, journal, go to the gym, and then after the gym is when I eat my breakfast. So it's a good 2.5 hours.
That's good, yeah.
But like I'm pretty hungry by that point. Like I get hungry in the morning. I just had to. But we were like, all right, let's try intermittent fasting. We tried intermittent fasting. Sam was kind of like, she was already kind of noticing, like, I feel kind of weird. I feel kind of weak. I feel like her numbers were just going down when working out, and her times were just going up, She's like, this is weird. And so we tried intermittent fasting, and then it shot it like crazy. Like, she was super, like, I do not feel good,
Yeah.
And then it was during the intermittent fasting time, and she's like, I feel terrible. She went to the doctor, and she found out she was diabetic.
There you go.
But
type 1 diabetes.
Type 1 diabetes.
Type 1,
yeah. So it's just like, it's funny because it's like, we tried intermittent fasting and it got my girlfriend diabetes, or girlfriend at the time.
Made her
diabetic. But then also I'm kidding. That did not do that.
Yeah, it's not for everyone though.
Yeah.
Fasting is not for everyone. I don't preach it as much as some people do.
Yeah.
It's just like what works for you.
Yeah, especially like when you're talking about like insulin levels, it's like that's what diabetics need.
Yeah.
So it's like
definitely not for everyone.
But also the whole like weekly thing is like I tracked macros for a while. I was able to lose 30, 40 pounds by doing it. That was how I lost like all my extra weight. But I was a big fan of the weekly because it's like it makes when you mess up, which inevitably you will, which I frequently do, it makes that mess up less of a drastic, like, oh no. Because it's like, okay, I had 300 over. Like, I'll just be sure that I'm not like going, all right, like I'm down, let me buckle in for the rest of this week. And you can make that up so easy.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like, it's not, and so a lot of people, when it's a daily thing, they're like, oh, I messed up, I screwed up, I'm done. And then like
day ruined. You know?
Day ruined with no consequence as to the rest of the week or the next day or anything. And so that weekly one helped me a lot. It's not like you're not tracking. It's not like you're going like, okay, now I have 15,000 calories.
Yeah.
Let me track out for the week. You're still doing your daily regimen, but with a bigger perspective of that daily regimen.
Yeah.
Don't on Monday be like, all right, 15,000. Here we go. Let's try this. Like,
it's not like you're stocking up at the beginning of the week and you're like, let's take from this big number. Because when you look at it from the daily, so many people can be like, oh, I have to ace today. I have to get a perfect score for today, and then a perfect score for tomorrow, and a perfect score the day after that. And they treat each day as it's like that's like the final. Like that's the final quiz when it comes to nutrition. They're like, I have to ace it, and then I have to go again tomorrow, and I have to be perfect. I have to get 100% tomorrow. And if they mess up, they're like, well, I'm not going to get 100%. What's the point? And they
Might
feel
as well just go for it and eat everything in sight.
Yeah. And that, or even if not, the mental part, if it's just feeling like you failed because you went a couple hundred calories over for a day, it's like, no.
Yeah.
And if you look at it from a weekly thing,
maybe you were just more hungry that day. Like that's okay.
Yeah.
that's
fine.
and in a lot of cases, it could be your body's doing exactly what it's supposed to.
Yeah.
It's being like, hey, we need to eat a little more today because you did this yesterday or today or whatever.
Yeah.
And if you look at it from a weekly thing, like in his book when he goes, if you do a 24-hour fast, even if you eat at maintenance, you're in a weekly deficit. So you can eat, you don't have to eat, 1,200 calories a day. You can eat at your maintenance. And if you do a fast once a week, again, if it's something you enjoy doing, if you hate doing it, don't do it, because you won't stick to it. But he's like, if you do a fast and you find this works for you, eating at maintenance, you'll still be in a weekly deficit. And that's great, which means you'll be in a monthly deficit, and if you look at nutrition from the grand bird's eye view that it actually is, because this is a big process. This is not a daily process.
Yeah, so for me, most people that follow any of my stuff would know that I am against most diet things. But fasting is one of the things that I actually did implement. So when I was doing I've been talking a lot about the physique show, but that's when I was doing more stuff diet-wise. When I was doing the physique show, I was actually pretty strict with intermittent fasting. Like I wouldn't start eating until like about 1 o'clock, right? And I would wake up at I wasn't waking up as early as I do now, so I was probably waking up at like 9, and I want to eat until 1. So I'd work out in the morning, and then I would eat pretty much after my workout, right? But I still do. I don't want to call it intermittent fasting, but I do skip breakfast. So most of the time, I don't eat until like 11. From 11 to maybe 12. Like I don't usually wait until like 1 now. But I usually stop eating at night at probably like 9:30, 10.
Yeah.
So it's still, I take like 12 hours off of eating. And I think the biggest thing for, I don't want to get into what fasting can do for other things, but like when it comes down to like weight loss, right?
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is it does help you get in a deficit just because you're eating, you have less time to eat.
It's time restricted, yeah. And it's not, like you said, it's not diet. It's not like people can use it to put into a diet format, but at its core, it's not like don't eat this, you can't eat that, that's a bad food or whatever. It's just like it's an eating habit, it's an eating schedule, and that's my same thing. Is like I said, usually around 11 or noon is when I start eating, and then I just try and cut it off at like 9 because I go to bed at like 10:30, and I don't want to go to bed super full because then I can't sleep if I like eat a bunch and then go right to bed. So, yes, I'm like, okay, just don't eat after 9 unless you're out late. If you're sitting there eating and I'm like, oh, I feel like a snack and it's 9:30, I'd be like, nah, I probably shouldn't. So, and it helps. It helps for me. And especially helps if you have a big appetite like me and you want bigger meals. You don't have to eat breakfast. Don't feel like you're screwing up because you're skipping breakfast if you're not hungry or whatever. And if you are hungrier later in the day, you can make that work. You can have bigger meals. It's totally fine. You're not gonna, you're not like under eating. You're not.
I think that's why I really enjoyed it, was because I've never really been someone that was ever super hungry in the mornings. I would just eat because I felt like you should, right? Like when I was heavier, it was like we would, my mom used to take us to Jack in the Box every morning, right? And I would get like a breakfast jack and
breakfast jacks,
hash browns, and literally a soda at like 7 in the morning before school. But, I was never really that hungry, but I just felt like you should eat, right? And then
it was breakfast time,
And then it was the same thing for, like, especially when you're in school, they're like, you need to eat so you're, you can focus, blah, blah, blah. Which, a lot of people say fasting actually helps you focus more. I'm not really going to get into that, but then when I started dieting and stuff, it's like, okay, or, you know, trying to lose weight, I was eating breakfast because, again, I felt like that's what you should do. But then once I started, like, getting more into it, I realized, like, I'm not hungry in the mornings anyways. And a lot of times, like, I would eat and then, like, feel kind of sick anyways.
Yeah.
So I've just used it as a thing that just, it's like, it's what fits my lifestyle. So some people, when they wake up, like Jean, like, they might be hungry. And so, like, then eat. Like, you know, it really, I don't, some
And
people like to.
You don't want to be around me when I'm hungry. So
Seriously, you don't.
You won't like me when I'm
it's
hungry.
hangry.
But, like, some people, like, they'll do the fast where they eat in the mornings and then they just don't eat for the rest of the day. Like, everyone's going to be different.
Yeah,
It's
and that works for people too. It doesn't have to be save it for later in the day. It can be, you know, eat in the morning and then fast, you know, throughout the evening, whatever.
Yeah, and for some people, it's going to be waking up in the morning and eating, and then eating in the afternoon, and then eating at night, and then having little snacks in between each of those.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but the thing is that does work for some people.
Yeah.
You
It
know,
does,
like
yeah.
the small meals. Like, but I was the same way. I still enjoy big meals. Like, I
Yep.
like, after I eat, I'm like, oh, I feel satisfied, you know?
Exactly.
But it's like, okay, instead of doing that 3 times a day,
Do it 2 times
maybe
a day.
do it 2 times a day.
Exactly.
And then I'll have like a little snack in between. But it's like a big part of it for me, people always ask, like, how do you not crave the bad foods you used to have, right? The pizza or whatever. And it's like, for me, one of the biggest things, and you kind of said it earlier, is I know how I'm going to feel after eating that. Not that I'm like, oh, if I eat that, I'm going to gain a ton of weight. It's like, no, if calories are equated, it's not that big of a deal. But I'm going to feel terrible. My performance is going to be terrible in CrossFit or in the gym in general. Maybe I have to go on a run or something like that. I don't want to feel like garbage. So it just, there's so many layers to why I don't think that's a good choice for me that it makes it easier, right? Like, it's the same thing, not to get into, like, alcohol, but, like, for me, people ask why I don't drink, and it's like there's so many layers of why I don't find it enjoyable or something I want to do that it's not hard to be like, no, it's just I have and it's, again, everyone's going to have different reasonings, but I have so many reasonings in my head that it's like I don't
feel like you're missing out.
Exactly. I don't feel like I'm missing out, and I don't see any positives of it other than, you know, for food, because drinking, like, I really don't see, and, like, that's my own thing. I'm not telling everyone else that they should feel that way, but, like, with food, it's like, yeah, there's definitely some positive. It's going to taste very, very good, and I'm going to really enjoy the food, right, while I'm eating it, but I know right when I'm done, I'm going to feel terrible.
Yep. Again,
not
it's like,
because it's like this moral thing. We were kind of talking about this before, right?
Yeah.
It's not this moral that I'm putting on pizza as a bad food that I'm not allowed to have. It's literally internally, I'm going to feel bad. My insides are.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that makes it easy for me to not eat those foods that are super calorically dense, that are going to be super, maybe taste good, but I know I'm going to feel bad. My performance is going to go down. And then, there's going to be a ton of extra calories in that. So it's like I can have those couple pieces of pizza, or I can have a huge meal that's going to be less calorically dense. You know?
Yeah.
I know that you were talking before the podcast about talking about, like, the morality of food.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I know, like, what he was talking about, it's not that he's going to feel bad because he ate it, but that his body will literally feel gross.
Yeah.
But, like, there is an element, like, people do get stuck in this, like, that's a bad food. I can't have it. Like, what, I know you're passionate about it, so.
Yeah, because it's something I'm dealing with still. Like, when I hit my goal weight, and I was like, okay, it's time to maintain, I'm still dealing with, like, the whole, like, fallout of attaching morals to food. So I'm still dealing with that.
It's tough, man.
And it's made me more passionate about it because I can see how destructive it can be.
So explain it first. Like,
okay.
So the ethereal concept.
Yes. So attaching morals to food is basically, it's crazy because it's, like, so common and almost like it's a given with food, where they're like, oh, I'm eating this, and people joke and be like, oh, don't tell them.
You're so bad.
Yeah, they're like, oh, you know, don't tell my trainer, you know, they joke and stuff like that, and it's like, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. You're having a cookie, you know. But it's attaching feelings of, like, good or bad, success or failure or accomplishment or, like, weakness with eating what's called good foods or eating bad foods, you know, in quotes. And good foods are, you know, veggies, lean meats, stuff like that, fruit. Bad foods are cookies, carbs. A lot of people say, like, you know, breads and stuff like that. Desserts, sweets, stuff like that. You know, anything artificial.
Things
Pizzas,
like that,
sodas, you know.
Burritos, John.
Burritos.
I'm feeling attacked right now. What's going on
So
here?
basically my whole diet.
Yeah.
Right, great.
My whole diet. Come on, man. Conviction. Stick up for the burritos.
I know.
Stick up for those. calorically dense foods or something like that, they're deemed like they're bad foods. And by saying that, they're like, you should feel bad when you eat them because you messed up. And that was not the most ideal thing you could have eaten.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's so deeply ingrained with people, it seems like, because it's something that's just talked about and it's like understood. It's like, well, that's a bad food. It was like, oh, I had way too many cookies tonight. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh man, you're going to have to run that off in the morning. It's like, it's such a destructive way because it's like, no. You run it off if you feel like going for a run. Mm-hmm. You don't do things like that out of some sort of obligation because, again, it takes the enjoyment out of it. So if you don't feel guilty. Because, I'm so passionate about this because I'm dealing with this still. It's crazy. One thing that's helped is journaling. Like, I have, like, a food journal, not where I, like, track what I eat. I track, like, how I feel when I eat something, where I'll be like, oh, I felt guilt when I ate this. Why? And then I'll kind of get to the bottom of it, but that's a whole other thing. Mm-hmm. And it's something I see a lot because I've had family members and people, like, at my church and stuff like that who have seen me lose weight come up to me and go, like, ask me about it, how'd you do it, this and this and that, and they're like, oh, I've been trying, and and you probably get that a lot, where people are like, oh, I've been trying, I just can't give up this, it's like, but I know I shouldn't be eating it, and it's like, well, no, you could just restrict it, eat a little less, don't give it up, because the second you be like, I can't eat this anymore, you're gonna want it even more. And that was me with dessert, is I was like, desserts are bad, and I have a huge sweet tooth. So the second I was like, no more cake, no more ice cream, no more cookies forever. When I first started, I was like, man, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And
it also becomes the only thing you want now.
And that's the only thing I want now. Yeah. I'm like, I will live off of cake now. Yeah. I can do it. It's okay. And that, for me, that led to binges, So I would get a craving. I'd eat it. I'd be like, oh, I haven't had it's hard too. My sister works at a bakery, so when she comes home for the weekends with all the leftover stuff that they'd have to throw out anyway, she'll be like, hey, there's a bag with some leftover cookies and a cinnamon roll and some, and some cupcakes in a box that we'd have to throw out.
That's tough.
It's like, that is a regular occurrence in my house. So I'll come home and on the countertop is a box of leftover stuff from a bakery, and I'm like, give me that box.
Yeah.
I will eat all of it. And I'll be like, oh, I haven't had a cookie in a couple weeks. I'll eat one. And I'd eat one, I'd be like, dang it, I've been going for a couple of weeks without eating one. Why am I weak around these cookies? And I'd start beating myself up, and I'd be like I mentioned, well, I messed up today. Might as well have another one.
Yeah.
Might as well get as many cookies as I can while I'm in mess up mode or whatever, whatever's going on in my brain. And it can lead to people overeating and then feeling bad about overeating and then truly binging if they have a problem with that, which I definitely do when it comes to sweets. And then they feel, defeated, and like we just talked about, there's that whole spiral of things, all because they felt like this food had some sort of like moral weight that came with it when it's just food. And you had a craving, you ate it, and it's fine, move on. The thought of you just being like, if you overeat like on chips and salsa, that's another thing. Oh my god. I saw a meme, it was like, I have a body type where it's like, you can tell I kind of work out, but I also can't control myself around chips and salsa. That's my body type. So if you eat a lot of chips and salsa at dinner, just being like, oh, I definitely ate too many chips and salsa tonight. That should be enough. That should be enough for you to be like, next time, just don't go ham.
I think that's important, that kind of distinction that you made, because I agree 100%, like, putting the morals on food is bad. But at the same time, if you're struggling with addiction to food, addiction to things, like, you have to realize that, like, if you don't put any sort of restraint on these foods, you're going to overeat them and you're not going to lose any weight, right? So it's like, it's about finding that balance, because again, I 100% agree. I don't think that you should put morals on food. I don't think that when, like, if you eat something, you should feel like you're bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You should maybe realize,
they
like
make it personal.
Exactly.
And that's so destructive. It's about your intention. It's about what's going on mentally. It's, if you're restricting because you're like, I eat way too much of this, and I know that's what's causing me to regain weight or gain more weight or not lose any weight or whatever, I should cut back on this because it's my problem food. You look at your habits, and if you see a bad habit, you want to get rid of it, and that's one thing. But if you're like, I shouldn't eat this because I'm a bad person if I do, that's very dangerous. Yeah. And that's not good. Yeah. And that's something you have to work on. Like, it's about your intentions mentally, you know.
And there's almost like no food that is so dense in calories that you can't have a little bit of it. You know,
exactly.
Like a donut, if you eat a donut, most of them, if it's a regular size donut, it's going to be maybe 300 calories. Yeah. Like, most people can fit that in their diet unless you're like bikini girl prepping for a show that's eating like 800 calories, which obviously I don't recommend. But it's like,
but that's actually a large part of our audience here.
yeah, definitely tons of bikini girls listening to the podcast. But it's like, so it's understanding that you can fit most things in anyways. So it's like, the issue is like, okay, do you need 6 donuts?
Yeah, no,
So
I'm workshopping this analogy right now as we talk.
Here we go.
But like, if you have a bank account, okay, and the bank account calorie correlation is a very common one.
Yeah.
Where if you have $1,000, and you spend $900 on something, you only have 100 left. Sucks, but like, the idea of like, okay, I have a problem buying clothes. Like, I have an addiction to buying clothes. What is the logical thing to do? Is like, okay, cut back on buying clothes. Yeah. Like, it doesn't mean throw all your clothes away and walk around naked everywhere. Like, you just limit
I tried
it.
That. This is not a good idea.
Yeah.
People did not like seeing the terry folds everywhere.
I was convicted. You can say I have conviction. No. But like, the logical conclusion is not to cut it out completely, but to set up healthy boundaries around it. And so it's like the same thing where it's like, if you have a problem food, the logical conclusion should not be to completely cut it out. Now, maybe for a season. Yeah. Maybe for, but the goal is to have a healthy relationship with it and not demonize it and not make it. Yeah. You can have it so big on one extent where that's all you eat, and that's a problem. Mm-hmm. You can also have it to where it's so big in your mind because you're constantly thinking you can't eat it, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Like getting to the point where it's like, I could have one if I wanted, but I'm not gonna.
Because it's like in both of those, in a way, you're just obsessed with it. You're sitting there just thinking about it all the time, and that's not healthy either.
And like, for some people, a Lululemon shirt is excessive because they... don't have a lot of expendable income.
Spending $80 on a shirt,
yeah. You know what I mean? They don't have a lot of expendable income, so buying a Lululemon t-shirt would be like, hey, man, like, you got a lot of other things you should be doing. But for some people, it's just whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, cool, I'm going to get a t-shirt, I like Lululemon, I'm going to go get it. One is not
Can't relate,
bad,
but whatever. Yeah. I'm not mad about it.
One is not bad, but it's just a different place for someone.
They're in a different spot.
It works.
Exactly.
So it is a problem if you are struggling to pay rent and then you're buying a Lululemon t-shirt. That's an issue. But if you are doing fine and you go to buy that shirt, this podcast is not sponsored by Lululemon,
Not sponsored by Lululemon, no.
But yeah, I think that's a really good mindset to get into because it's so... again, it's about sustainability when it comes to diets and when it comes to keeping weight off, right? And if your diet is all you're thinking about, and it's all you're thinking about is what you can't have, it's not gonna happen. You're not gonna last. It's just think about it. Willpower is you can't always be perfect willpower, and once it goes and you binge on that food, there's nothing you can do about that,
And there's also there's so much science behind the fact that we have a limited amount of willpower.
Yeah.
Like if that's why a lot of people are like, oh, choose your outfit the day before, get date ready the day before, because when you're in the morning and you're spending all that willpower energy and what do I want to wear, what do I want to eat, what do I want to it leaves you exhausted later in the day, mentally. Whereas if you can automate as much as possible, it gives you more willpower to work on other things or make other decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And eventually you'll break, that's kind of extreme. But you'll find yourself marching into Lululemon being like, I want every t-shirt in here, put it in my bag right now.
Mm-hmm. Can't relate.
Can't relate to that either.
Even if I wanted to.
But yeah, and it's also comes down to if you see something food you really want to try, that's at where I work, we'll have birthday celebrations, and I know what store-bought cake tastes like, so I'll be like, nah, I'm fine, I don't need cake. Yeah. But if someone brings their homemade, strawberry cheesecake fudge, and I'm like, I want to try that, just have a piece.
Yeah,
that didn't ruin my day. Mm-hmm. If you come across a really funny shirt that you want to buy, using your analogy, it's not no, but I'm supposed to be controlling my. It's just buy the shirt. Yeah. You probably won't find it again. Just buy the shirt. Mm-hmm. It's $10, $12. Just buy it, and you like the shirt. You're not a horrible person. You're not a failure because you wanted that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it's the same thing. A couple the donut, a couple 300 calories extra. Your body will find a way to make that work. You'll fidget a little more. You'll walk around a little more. You'll have a little more energy. You'll feel walking your dog a little longer that night or something like that. Your body will find a way to use it. Your body isn't going to be like in panic mode because you ate a little more.
And again, what we're saying is the goal, but for a lot of people, like in order to kickstart that and jumpstart it, a lot of times it is you got to be extreme for a minute.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like not extreme, but be overzealous.
It's be very self-controlled at start, because the lack of it most likely is what got you to a point where you realize it's bad habits because you didn't really have much control over it.
Yeah.
So you got to start there, but
there's
realize
so much freedom on the other side.
Oh,
you know, like there's so like being able to have that freedom to be like, yeah, I'm really excited that I get to have this donut, or you know, whatever. Like there's freedom there, but in like we've talked about it before, like in most situations, discipline creates freedom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so I have a question. How is your relationship with the scale?
Ooh, that's a great question. It got rocky. I was weighing myself every morning near the end too, and if the number didn't go down, I was just like, dang it. And I mean, track your weight. If you start and you're like me, if you start and you're 320 pounds, at the start you should be losing weight. You know, you look for things that make the scale go down. But when you're in the weeds or in your journey on that, don't get attached to that. Don't use that as the number one indicator of how well you're doing, because your weight fluctuates daily. It fluctuates hourly. You know,
seriously,
you drink a big glass of water and that changes your body weight. And so if people who, again, like people have come up to me and they'll be like, oh, I weigh myself like twice or more a day. And I'm like, why are you doing that? That's not healthy. Because it fluctuates. So don't use that as your main indicator. Other things to look for are, it's like, track your weight. It's going to go down. And that's a sign that overall it's working. Whatever you're doing is working. But look for things like, you can start with the mirror. You know, are you looking leaner? Some people, that's a goal. You know, it's not all about how you look, but are you looking leaner? That's good. Your body fat's probably going down. How do you feel? You know, do you feel more energetic? Do you feel more ready to go on a hike with your friends? Go for a walk? Do something? Are you feeling more active? That's great. How do you feel in the gym? Like we do CrossFit. Are you feeling stronger? Are you feeling faster? Are you feeling more explosive? Do you not feel like crap because of what you ate? You know, that's good. How do you feel just in your headspace? Do you just feel healthier and happier? Do you feel more energetic and alive and enjoying the process more? That's good. If all that's happening, but your weight isn't going down as fast as you like, or you plateaued for a day or something like that, that's not the end of the world. You know, track your weight, but I got so attached to it, and it got me to, and that was when I was tracking my food too. So I was getting super obsessed with the numbers, both in tracking and on the scale, and it got me to a very just like isolated place, because I wasn't like, no, I can't try that because my weight didn't go down this morning. I don't know what's going on, so and I got to really low calories too when I was like in that really dark place too. I got to the point where I was eating like 1,600 calories a day, and like I'm tall, and I'm a bigger person. That's not good. It was. Thankfully, I realized that finally. I was doing a workout here that like should have been super easy. It was like deadlifts and wall balls, and those were like my jam. And I was feeling like lightheaded. The wall balls, I can do like big sets of like 10 plus unbroken pretty easily, and I just could not just even like find the will to pick the wall ball up. And I was like, why am I so lightheaded? Why do I feel? I started feeling dizzy, and I was like, oh yeah, I ate like 1,500 calories yesterday. And I was like, I got to stop this. So when you attach success to the numbers instead of more how you feel, which is more sustainable, the goal is to feel good and feel healthy for the rest of your life. Not, in a way, no one cares. Like you say, no one cares how long it took you or how short it took you to lose the weight. In a way, no one cares like how much you weigh. It's more like, what's better for you is how do you feel? Are you healthy? Are you involved
Literally
in
no one cares how much you weigh.
Are you involved in a physical activity that keeps you healthy and you enjoy? That's way more important than what the scale says. So when I noticed I was getting super attached to that, and when I got to my goal weight, I stopped weighing myself as often. I kind of just put my scale in my closet. I was like, okay, I've got to my goal body weight, and I'm going to go more on how I feel. And that's opened it up a lot more to just realizing what's more important indicators of my success with all this, you know, is if I feel better.
I feel like my life is the example of what not to do most of the time. I think that's why I'm on the podcast. Just like to tell people how not to do things.
Good example and then bad example.
Yeah. I like to step on the scale after I ate a lot. I just like to see like how much do I weigh now?
You're like, I'm curious.
Yeah,
I'm just
literally.
curious. What
Well,
did I
see,
just do?
But the thing is that's fine if your mentality is like,
This
it's
is
not,
funny.
it's not going to be
I'm
shameful.
laughing it off.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Like,
and so, like, with what you were talking about with the scale, I think that the scale can be a great tool, but that's it. Like, you don't need to turn it into, this is what's going to decide whether I or not I have a good or bad day. I think there's a huge movement of, like, throwing the scale away, and I think that's just too extreme. It's not necessary.
Yeah.
I think the scale can and should be something that you use to track your progress, but it shouldn't be the only thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, there's looking at yourself in the mirror, seeing how you're feeling, maybe even measurements if you want to go there.
You can do measurements. I
Like,
never really did those,
me
but yeah,
neither.
that is definitely.
I never did
some people
measurements
do
either.
measurements, and that works.
Yeah, so the scale can be helpful, but again, it's like anything. Too much of a good thing can become a bad thing, right? So if you're weighing yourself every day, I think that you can weigh yourself every day. If you again, it's the mentality that you're using it. If you're like, oh, I'm up a pound, but it's like, oh, I don't care.
Yeah.
You can use it as a track to see, as long as the line is trending down. Well,
good.
yeah, it's going to be like up down a little bit, but as long as it's going down, that's all that really matters.
Yeah.
So when I was, in my weight loss phase, I would weigh myself pretty much every day. But especially like the larger you are, you will see it go down most of the time. You're not going to have much fluctuations unless, again, you drank a ton of water or maybe had a ton of sodium the day before. Like I fluctuate 8 pounds a day easily. Like no joke, maybe even more. So it's like, understand that that's going to happen. So if you do want to weigh yourself a day, it's totally fine. I think, again, it's just where your mindset is. Because if you're only weighing yourself maybe, say, once a week or once a month, and say you weighed yourself on a day that you were like pretty low for that for some reason, and then you weighed yourself the same day the next week, but you were high, so now it's like, oh, I only lost 0.2 pounds. But it's like, no, you're actually trended about 3 pounds down. When you weighed yours, you know what I mean? So it's like,
it just lined up.
Exactly.
It was bad timing or whatever.
It was bad timing. So,
and also I stress, it's like your weight loss is not going to maintain the same rate it does when you first start.
Oh, dude, that is such a huge thing.
If you start, it is normal to lose 5+ pounds even in your first week. If you
even more,
it is not going to be like that on week 70 or whatever. It is going to be different.
And that's where a lot of people end up making drastic changes that don't need to happen. Like, because when you're morbidly obese, you can make some simple changes, right? Like we've talked about the common sense diet. Like for me, simple changes were, it was hard, but it was simple, right? No soda, no junk food, no fast food, right? Like, make those simple changes and you see huge results, and you can literally lose weight without even really trying. By cutting those things out. You
can lose weight like almost passively instead of actively.
Exactly. And then, but you will get to a point where that's where a lot of people hit the plateau. It's like they have to start making more concerted efforts to the weight loss, right? If that's something that they really want to pursue. And then they start seeing the scale slow down. Then they start doing more drastic things, eating 1,600 calories and still doing CrossFit. Like that's what I was struggling with. At one point, I was eating like 700 calories because it turns into calories are the devil. Calories are the reason I'm this size, so I need to avoid them at all costs. And I've noticed the lower calorie I go, the more weight I lose. So that's a positive in my mind, but it's
actually such a huge negative.
It's
what
true,
you're doing
man.
To your body. It's not a positive at all.
Weight loss is like, I always say, like, it can be a great thing, but it's not too much of a good thing is not a good thing always,
And then like the opposite of Twitter, when something's trending on Twitter, it means it's right now, right happening, going. It's the pulse right now. That's trending. But
Spider-Man.
with weight loss,
Shout out Spider-Man.
Oh, poor guy.
Poor guy.
I've heard. There's more updates, I guess.
Oh.
Really?
It looks like they're working.
Dang
on
it! I was ready to see Uncle Ben die again.
Anyway, trending weight loss is not right now, right? That's the negative. Like, you need time to see a trend. You need a lot of time to see a trend. So to know if you're trending low is not going to happen in a day. It's not going to happen in a week. It's going to happen like in a month. Like when you have multiple points that you can look at and go, okay, those went down over time. Again, that's just that if you're selling a program, time is your worst enemy.
Yep.
Because it's going to prove if you're good or bad.
People want it now.
Yeah.
And it's because the long-term weight loss typically is coming from habits instead of like extreme measures.
Exactly.
And you want it to be from habits you're making instead of, because you can
Anybody
be in a
lose weight.
diet pain cave for
Exactly.
8 weeks.
Yep.
But once you're out of it and you don't know what to do, it's like, what was the point of that?
Yeah.
You know? And it's really quick, going back to what you mentioned about using the scale as a tool. An example of that is when I noticed I was way too low in calories, I took a diet break. So I typically read it as like 2 weeks at maintenance. Take a diet break. Let your metabolism kind of recalculate, get back to normal. And at that point, I did weigh myself every day because I was like, I want to see if I'm maintaining my weight. And that's good because I view that as like, an analogy I use is I'm collecting data on myself.
Exactly.
Just to learn about how my
Exactly.
body works. I was like, I am not going to get upset about what this scale says. And I promised myself that, and I stuck to it, and it felt great because I was like, now I'm just collecting data. I'm learning about what this process is doing in my body. And I found, this number I calculated what my maintenance calories is. It actually was. And now I know roughly what my maintenance is. And I learned something in those 2 weeks. That's helpful. Becoming obsessive is not. So it's like, again, it's about your intention. If you're trying to learn about different processes, you can weigh yourself every day if you're curious about what's going on, you know.
But exactly, like I weigh myself like every couple days, maybe not even that much, and it's just to be like, for me, it's like curious. I'm like, I feel kind of bloated right now. I wonder if I'm up a few pounds. Like, and I know that it's not fat. It's just gonna be water. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think of it as this. It's attaching the moral to it, right? Like, I just understand that it's just the number, and there's tons of reason as to why it will go up or down. And obviously, like if you're in a weight loss phase, a lot of that's going to be fat loss, hopefully, right? But it's like, understand that it's not that scale doesn't track how much fat you've lost or how well your diet's working. It's just tracking what your body weight is.
It's a result given from a part equation, and like I said, it fluctuates hourly. So
all right. So one thing I definitely wanted to talk about before we end the podcast, I just found this out right before we started filming.
Someone said that I lack conviction. We just want to talk about it just a little bit longer.
Yeah,
I like the conviction you're showing about bringing that up, John. I'm really proud of you.
They can't say you lack conviction now. But I wanted to talk about. You said that you had a surgery.
I did.
And we just found out. So that was you got the loose skin on your lower stomach.
Lower
removed?
stomach. Yeah,
right?
tummy tuck.
So-
I forget what the actual word is for it, but.
How was that? What was the process like? Like, take us from start to where you are now, I guess.
Okay, it was interesting, man.
Because everyone thinks that I'm very against it, which I just don't want it for myself. I don't think I need it, but I have no issues with people that get it. So,
we're
this
settling.
is my friend, and
we're settling this beef right now. It was. I was curious. I never really thought about loose skin when I first started off, and then I was like, I probably will have some. Just looking at myself, I'm like, if I'm being realistic, I'm going to definitely have some loose skin, if anywhere in my lower abdomen. So I was recommended a plastic surgeon from someone here at the gym, and I was like, I'm just going to go for a consultation, because if you Google that, you're going to get so many weird numbers and worst case scenarios and stuff like that. I'm like, when it comes to surgeries like that, Google is not the most reliable thing. Going to the actual
doctor. It's like
doctor,
going to WebMD and realizing, I have cancer. Okay, that's
you Google like how much, and it's like you're dying. I'm sorry. It's like, oh dang it. So
I thought it was a hangnail.
So I went in. He examined me. He was like, "Oh yeah, this isn't a big deal. You'll be walking the same night. They want you walking around. That's one thing I did not know about is you're not bedridden when you get this done. At least not for like me. If it's more extensive surgeries, then probably would be. But for me, he's like, you're gonna be walking around the night after you get your surgery because we don't want blood clots forming and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, so I won't be bedridden. They'll want me walking around, which is great. And he goes, this will be a quick surgery, just a little cut right here, and it was like thousands of dollars less than I thought it was going to be. So I was like, okay. I went back again and went over it more, and I decided, okay, I want to get this done. It didn't bother me. It didn't interfere with the workouts or anything like that. I didn't need to wear any like compression clothing or anything like that. I just didn't like looking at it. If I'm being totally honest, it was more a vanity thing than anything. I just looked in the mirror and I'd be like, I don't like you. I don't like that you're still there. So I went in. It was like a 2.5 hour surgery, something like that, 3 hour surgery. It was my first time in anesthesia. That was interesting. They are not kidding when they're like, you'll be talking and all of a sudden, boom, you were out like a light. He was sitting there and he was like, okay, so we're going to start now. I'd be like, great. He goes, are you feeling it right now? I'm like, I'm feeling tired. He goes, good. And boom, I was out. And next thing I knew, I woke up, I was in recovery, and
Wow.
I was super groggy. Like my hands and my arms just felt like heavy. If I tried to like hold my arm up, I just would flop down. I was so sore and just tired. They wheeled me out to my car. My parents picked me up. We drove home, and all of a sudden I started getting super hungry because you have to be fasted going into this. So I hadn't eaten since like 7 or 8 the night before, and it was like 1 or 2. And I was very hungry, and I had to eat something too to take my pain meds. So they're like feeding me applesauce, and then I was like a mixture of hunger and the grogginess, and I felt like nauseous, and I was like, I just want this nightmare to be over. And I went home and I napped for like 5 hours, and I woke up. I felt a lot better, and they helped me sit up, and I could stand up, which was weird. Again, I thought I'd just be laying in bed the whole time, but I stood up. It's very sore. You're very tight. When that happens, you can hardly stand up straight, because what he did is not only did he take the loose skin off, and they did the thing where they like attach your belly button and all that weird stuff. But then he went in, and because my abdomen muscles were so stretched out, that he tightened them up. And so you're just so swollen and tight and sore. It feels like you did, 1,000 sit-ups for the first time in your life or something like that. You were so sore. And it was just days of me seeing how upright I could stand, seeing how much I could walk around. And you get tired very fast because your core is, sore, and that's kind of holds you up and supports everything. So a lot of days of laying in bed, had to take a break from the gym, which was the hardest part. I was
I'm sure, man. Yeah.
I love working out, and it was like at least 2 months where he's like, you can't really touch the barbell for about 6 weeks, 2 months. And once you do it, you have to start light. Which is interesting. I'm interested to see how that goes, because it's going to be like being a beginner all over again, except now I know what I'm capable of, and that's going to be weird. I know what my max is on like a clean, and knowing I can't do it, like I actually cannot do it because I will hurt myself. It's going to be weird. But besides that, the recovery is just, you get bored when you just have to kind of sit there in an incline and recover. But
Do you have an Xbox?
I have Xbox. I do, but I didn't use it.
Oh. That would be like my saving grace, is I would put on some like Oblivion or something and then just be gone.
Oblivion.
I don't know.
John hasn't played games in quite a while.
Dude, that was a game, man.
Yeah, I'd bust out the old console.
The old console.
The old cartridges, blow them out, put them in. And
no, it was a lot of Netflix, a lot of Amazon Prime,
Did
reading.
you watch The Boys?
I did. Did you finish that?
So good.
It was interesting. I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, me neither.
So
I had no idea.
I watched The Boys.
it's crazy that they all died.
Don't say that. It's not true. Sean.
They all died.
I always like to use the joke. There was a bomb. Everyone died.
There was a bomb. Everyone died.
So how long ago was the surgery?
Surgery was about 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, and I mean, you walked in here. I didn't even know, right? Because I haven't been able to come to the gym because I've been dealing with some hip stuff. So I figured you had been coming, and then so I see you walk in, and I was like, oh, did you work out today? And then that's when you told me that you had. So it doesn't. You're walking around, and I don't think anybody could tell if they just looked at you when you're walking around that you had that surgery.
Yeah, which is crazy.
That's
I'm happy.
insane.
I went in for
Is that satisfying, or is
it is satisfying?
Or do you wish you can just walk around shirtless so people know?
Look at my scar.
Yeah, belly scar is very low, and so
look at my scar.
That'd be a very I'd probably get in trouble if I'd be like, "You want to see my scar?" But
that's his new pickup line with all the ladies.
Yeah, go full on Joker, except way worse.
Just got yourself Flasher.
Yeah. It's definitely satisfying. I went in for my post-op like a week or so after. So they saw me the day after just to like check up on me. And then they're like, okay, you're good for a week. And so I went in for a week after that. And with how I was standing up and how fast I was able to stand up and lay flat instead of on an incline, and they checked all the incisions and stuff like that, he and the nurse were like, you're at where people are like week 3, like movement-wise.
It's because of CrossFit.
I was like, it's 'cause no, and like I didn't mention CrossFit, but I was like, I definitely think I'm recovering faster now than I would have like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
because
there's no doubt.
I'm healthier, I'm eating better,
yeah,
and my body is used to being broken down and repairing itself multiple times a week through working out and stuff. So my body is used to having to recover very fast, and I'm feeding it enough to recover, and so I definitely think I am recovering faster than I would have in the past. So, but that was cool when they're like, no, you're weeks ahead of schedule. but you still can't work out. I was like, dang it.
You're like,
So what you're
saying is-
so I could go to Grace now.
Yeah.
I can go to, yeah.
So
I can go do
GHDs?
GHDs. No, what was the one at the end of the games? What was it called? The Standard?
Oh,
Where it was
yeah,
like
yeah.
Grace and Isabel and muscle ups.
And muscle ups, yeah, there you go.
Dude,
We'll
that
just
was
do that
cool.
real quick.
I want to do that.
Well, no, it's really interesting to me because I have tons of friends that have had the surgery, and everyone has different experiences. Like my friend Zach, shout out to Zach if you're listening to this. I love you,
Yeah,
man.
I remember watching
But
his video.
His recovery was a nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
Like he was like bedridden for a while. He had drains, and so like he had. I think he had a lot more loose skin than you did.
Yeah.
So I think that goes into play too. It's like everyone's. It's one of those things that everyone's recovery is going to be so different based on the amount that you have.
That's why I'm like, get a consultation.
Yeah, so I think that's it's really interesting that you know a week after you were already walking around.
Yeah.
It's 2 weeks and you
Just
like,
walking
you
around.
can't tell like if I was to like look at you, you're not like, oh, that guy's in pain. It's like, no, he looks pretty
Yeah.
good.
The only thing is I have to wear like a binder, like a
Yeah.
big, like really tight binder to help with the swelling, and that gets very uncomfortable
Does
at
it?
work because you're just sitting like
Oh,
I have to
yeah.
wear, I have
Is
to
there-
wear, you know, like business casual. So I'm all like dressed, my shirt tucked in. I have that, and I'm sitting at a desk, and I was like, I have to just stand up and just
Mm-hmm.
walk around just because it gets so uncomfortable.
Binder is a lot nicer word than was it called bouchier or bouchier?
I don't know.
What's like the old like back
The
in the
corset.
day corset?
Corset.
Yeah.
Nope.
Where
Bougie-
was the?
Booty.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm thinking.
I don't know
of.
what you're thinking of.
I don't know. What's English?
What is English?
What language?
No, yeah, we'll call it binder. It sounds more hardcore.
Yeah.
I'm gonna binder.
Your corset.
Is there
okay.
is there any pain now or no? Would you say?
Not really. If it's like if I stretch too far, but mostly if I like lean back too far. Just it's still tight. It's also weird because you're very numb when this happens.
Yeah,
like
that's-
I'll touch if I touch my stomach, my finger will feel my stomach, but my stomach will feel nothing, if that makes sense. It's
Yeah,
like
I
you
get
are
that.
so numb down the middle and down by the incisions. So if Currently, it's not as bad,
Oh,
but it's
but
now
still?
more down by the incision. And the incision, it's weird being numb, but also incredibly itchy at the same time. It's just,
wow.
it's just all these weird phenomena I've never experienced before.
Do you have like, you know, when like if you lose an arm, you phantom arm? Do you have like phantom?
Phantom loose
Phantom
skin.
loose skin.
Phantom
Yeah.
loose skin.
Like, are you if you like jump, are you expecting it? You know what I mean? Like,
I've never really tried
haven't
like
tried to
jumping
jump
around
yet.
just
Yeah, you
because
haven't
I don't
done that
want to do
Yeah, that
anything.
makes
Well,
So-
let's go do some box jumps.
Let's go to some box jumps. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, it's no pain. It's more just tightness, and if I stretch, I stretch weird, I'll kind of just feel some discomfort by the incision. But that's really it. Besides that,
discomfort. The doctors have been talking to you.
They
They've
have
got
been
you
talking
using
to
their
me.
language.
Yeah,
A
It's-
little some pressure.
Yeah.
You just stabbed me in the eye.
yeah.
Slight pressure.
The second day was the worst.
Really?
Like, well, there's the surgery day, then the day after that, and the day after that was the worst. I was so tight. I was so swollen, so much, like down by the incision. It hurt if I leaned back at all or stood up even somewhat upright. And then after that, it started feeling better. But so
How long did you take off of work?
I got a week and a half off of work.
Nice.
It was nice. So, but then at that point, I was ready to go back.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say
Yeah.
nice, kinda.
Because I got my surgery on Wednesday, so Wednesday to Sunday was like, this is great. I got
Yeah.
time off, and then that next Monday to Sunday, I was like, I am so bored.
Oh yeah.
I was like, after Netflix and reading and walking around, I just kind of walk around my house to just get used to standing upright, and I just kind of sit there and be like, I guess I'll go walk around more. I guess I'll read some more, and so it's nice to go back to work, but he just cleared me for brisk walking. So
Ooh.
we're shifting into the next gear here.
Go on some trails or something
Do some
like that.
brisk walking. Yeah. I'll see what I feel comfortable with.
Get your
'cause now-
short shorts on.
Get my short shorts on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ask people if they want to see my scars. No, yeah. At this point, he's just
Get
like
arrested,
get
no big
arrested.
deal.
Yeah. It was like
Living life, man.
I'll brisk walk away and resist arrest. No. And now he's just like, just see what you feel comfortable with. He goes, no lifting, but now you're in the territory of instead of don't do this because you'll hurt yourself. Now it's see what you're comfortable with. So.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I wanted to talk about. Do you have anything you want to say?
No,
Sean?
I feel like we talked
covered
about
a lot.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did. That was a fun one. All right, so if I'm not sure if you want people to find you, but do you want people to find you?
No.
Okay.
No,
Well, there you go.
I'm
appreciate-
I actually hope you guys don't air this episode.
Yeah. I thought we were just talking, man. What's that camera doing?
But so if people did want to find you, where would they find you?
I'm on Instagram, but it's a private account. I mean, I don't post that much. It's more just for friends and family. So if you want to find me, come down to CrossFit Darkside in San Diego, and
There
you'll
you
see
go.
me eventually. I'll be back in there.
Yep. All
But
right.
Yeah, come to San Diego and ask for the guy who talks about CrossFit and fasting.
That wears sports t-shirts.
Or sports t-shirts. I love this shirt so much. Shout out to Philip DeFranco for creating this t-shirt. I love it. I got it when I got into CrossFit. I was like, I have to buy that shirt because I'm a sportser now. I do sports.
Yes. We love sports.
We love sports.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. If you guys want to leave a review for us, that would be awesome on iTunes, or you want to listen on Spotify, or you want to leave a comment on YouTube. Don't talk about me not having any conviction. And if you do, I will find you. That's it. I'll probably just.
He's super convicted now.
Yeah, I'd be scared.
He'll tell you like that really hurt my feelings. Okay.
All right. Until next week. Peace.
Peace.